My name is Hector Sabido, and I serve as the Hispanic Leaders Network advisor and host of HLN's video podcast, Orgullo Hispano. I would like to welcome you to the Hispanic Leaders Network Foro Político para Nuestra Comunidad, or Political Forum for our community. I would like to thank each of you, our participants, and all of our candidates for being present this evening. We would first like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and then the prayer, so if you could please stand with me as we say our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I would like to invite our host for the evening and senior pastor of Family of Faith Worship Center, Pastor Ruben Andrade, as he leads us in a word of prayer.
Let us bow our heads in prayer. Father, we just thank you for this evening. We thank you for the opportunity that our community can come together, Lord God, and for the betterment of the people here of McLennan County and the greater Waco area. I pray that today's forum, Lord God, would be a respectful one, a reverent one, and an informative one as well. And so we just speak your blessings over every candidate, their respective families, Lord God, and we thank you for the service of everyone here today. And so we invite you in the midst of today. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. You may have a seat. So I would like to take this opportunity to share a little bit about the Hispanic Leaders Network, or as some referred as HLN. We are a group of Hispanic leaders in the greater Waco community who are passionate and deeply vested in supporting current and future leaders. Our vision is to develop and empower current and future leaders to make a difference in the community. Our mission is to provide personal, cultural, and professional development opportunities to inspire Hispanic leaders to serve and make a positive impact. To ensure our vision and mission are successful, the HLN continues to host various events to encourage, inspire, and support current and future leaders. HLN strongly encourages everyone to have a voice and vote irrespective of what party or candidate they vote for. We also respect every individual's right to express their comments, opinions, and choice of candidates. A member or non-member's individual preference of candidates or party does not represent the view of the Hispanic Leaders Network as a whole. If you would like more information about the Hispanic Leaders Network, please visit our website at hln-waco.org. or visit our Facebook page or any of our social media pages. Early voting began today, October 24th. And it was very strategic on our end to host this forum today, the first day of early voting. And election day is November 8th, 2022. The Hispanic Leaders Network is honored to present Foro Político para Nuestra Comunidad, and we are extremely excited to have had a great response from candidates who were interested in participating in tonight's event. Latinos are an integral and valuable part of Waco and McLennan County and the great state of Texas. 1 in 3 eligible votes is Latino. We understand that in order for Waco and McLennan County to continue to be strong and prosperous, it is important that all of our voters make informed decisions about those who represent them in their district area, to work on policies that affect everything from public access, good schools, and thriving businesses. Please, let's give a round of applause for every candidate that was willing to be in attendance today to talk with each and every one of you. Let's give them a round of applause. Now you've heard enough of me. Following me, I'd like to introduce our moderator, and it is Keisha Lopez. Keisha Lopez is one of the weekday morning anchors for KWTX News 10. Keisha attended Arkansas State University, where she majored in radio television with an emphasis in news gathering. She graduated with a Bachelor's of Science degree as a proud member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Keisha got her first on-air job as a reporter for WKAG-TV in Clarksville, Tennessee, where she covered 101st Airborne Division Search and Kill Mission for Uday Qasem Hussein during Operational Iraqi Freedom. From childhood years of performing in musical in Central Arkansas to reporting on military news in Middle Tennessee, from waking up viewers in Middle Georgia every weekday morning with important issues to informing you, Central Texas, about the interesting stories that affect your lives and our community, it excites Keisha, and she is happy to be a part of the News 10 family. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please help me welcome Ms. Keisha Lopez.
Thank you, Hector, for that welcoming welcome, I guess. I'm so glad that everybody was able to come out this evening despite the weather. But let's go ahead and get started. It is my pleasure to be your moderator this evening. I do want to welcome the county and state candidates. I can't wait to hear from you. First, though, let's start with a few ground rules for instructions. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to introduce themselves, your state, state your name, the position that you're running for, and also how, if elected, you will make a positive difference in our county and in our state. I am using a timer. Where's the timer?
I'll do it.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to use a timer, and you should hear it when it goes off. At this time, you'll be allowed to finish your last statement, and then I'll let you know when your time is up. Audience, you may write your questions down on the yellow card that was provided to you when you walked in. All you have to do is give your card to Hilda Sabido. Can you raise your hand? Hilda, there she goes. No, Elaine. Is Hilda here?
Elaine's going to do it.
Okay, Elaine Vitello, who is there as well. So they're going to pass your question card to me, and then I'll read it. If you're watching us on Facebook Live, you can use the comment feature to ask your question. Okay? So let's begin. First, we're going to introduce the candidates. And you guys can come take your seats. Pete Sessions, incumbent and candidate for Texas 17th Congressional District. Doc Anderson, incumbent, and candidate for the Texas House of Representatives, District 56. Aaron Shank, there you go. Aaron Shank, candidate for Texas. You're all on this side, and then the Democrats on this side. Okay, there we go. All right, so Aaron Shank, candidate for Texas House of Representatives, District 56. Cedric Davis, candidate for Texas House of Representatives, District 13. Josh Teetons, incumbent and candidate for McLennan County District Attorney. I didn't see you there. All right, and Audrey Robertson, candidate for McLennan County District Attorney. Patricia Miller, incumbent and candidate for McLennan County Commissioner, Precinct 2. Donis D.O. Wilson, candidate for McLennan County Commissioner, Precinct 2. Jessica Dominguez, candidate for Justice of the Peace, Precinct 5. And Lucian Sanchez y Miramontes, candidate for Justice of the Peace, Precinct 5. All right, and so we begin. We're going to ask that the incumbent answer the question first, okay? All right. So this is for congressional candidates. Excuse me?
Introduce themselves.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm skipping ahead. Hey! I know you well.
Is that on?
I think it's on.
Okay. Congressman Pete Sessions.
You know, we're gonna share. There you go.
There you go. I don't know that I have that on, Hector, but that green light seems to say it's on to me. Okay, there we go. Thank you. I'm ready for any question that you've got.
Okay. So I think we want to do.
Oh, I do an opening? Oh, okay. Thank you very much for being here. Tonight is an important event, not only for people who may be watching this, but also that are here. My name is Pete Sessions. I'm a member of Congress from the 17th Congressional District of Texas. I live here in Waco. I was born, raised, and live here in Waco, Texas. And I serve what will be 14 counties that goes from McLennan County south to Milam County, Williamson County, and to Pflugerville, which is in Travis County, and then extends itself out south and east to Walker County, which is Huntsville, then to Angelina and Nacogdoches counties, which would be Lufkin and Nacogdoches. It is a district that is important. Much of it is considered rural. It is an area that has many, not only cow-calf operations, but also other areas of agriculture, but it also is the heartland for our energy industry. We have a lot of manufacturing in this congressional district, and we have a lot of important businesses that produce goods and services that help much of America staying strong. I am here because I deeply believe, as a conservative Republican, that my party stands for not just the values that are important, as I was raised here in Waco, but also the values that I think are exhibited as an Eagle Scout. I think we need to leave our campsite better than the way we found it. We need to treat other people with respect. We need to do a good turn daily. But perhaps more than that, we need to empower people to be a part of a system that is called not just the free enterprise system, but as capitalism. And capitalism has served more people, more nations than any other political and economic system that we have seen. It empowers people, in the United States of America wants to own across the world the leadership in ability to have free people come to work, free enterprise to flourish, and people to have the opportunity to have not only the dignity of work, but an opportunity to move themselves up and down what might be a free enterprise system, perhaps small business, perhaps working for a large company. My party, I am a Republican, empowers economic growth. And we empower economic growth because we have lower taxes that encourage people to be able to not only work hard, but keep more of what they have so that they can take care of themselves and their families and their communities. Lastly, one of my sons is a Down syndrome young man, and Alex is 28 years old. I have learned through not only being a parent of how important it is to recognize that many people across not just Texas, but in the United States and the world, struggle with children who have been given to us as a result of a gift from God. I strongly believe in the ability for us to help take care of people who have an intellectual or a physical disability. In particular, the families that struggle with these young people, perhaps older adults. And I strongly support this country making strides in education, strides in healthcare, strides in research and development, and employment. As my son got his 5-year patch for working as he does for Home Depot. So I'm very, very proud of the things that we as families, we as communities, and we as great people, when we work together, we're able to make things better for so many people. That's a system, that's a political system, and that is a country that cares deeply about everybody's future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, can you hear me now? There we go. Okay. Doc Anderson.
Thank you. You should. Are you on or not?
I think it's on now. I think we're back and bouncing back and forth.
Thank you. We want to thank the Hispanic Leadership Network for putting this together. I think it's very important, particularly if we're going to be on the web page there. That's great to have, as well as people here. My name is Charles Doc Anderson. I'm a state representative in District 56. I like to say the absolute heart of Texas. This is my 9th session. I'll be running for the 10th session. I describe myself as a conservative, pro-life conservative, and my definition of conservative is that you empower the individual as opposed to empowering the state or the agency, like the IRS, that we're looking at here, and so that we empower small businesses and the individual and families. Let me say Texas is the 10th largest economy in the world. And a lot of that has to do with our natural resources and assets around the state, but also has a lot to do with conservative leadership we've had in Texas over the last 20 years. It's very important that we keep that going forward because there's a lot of challenges with the growing state. We actually are approaching 30 million people, 38 congressmen now. And so in dealing with that, there's a lot of challenges that we haven't seen in the past, and so we have to make sure we're prepared for that. Let me say that one thing that's important is having experience in state government. The seniority is an important aspect. Pete has 24 years seniority, I believe, which is really a blessing for our district. As we go forward, it's important that we maintain that to deal with some of these problems. One issue that we may have, or I think should be considered, is as we go forward, are we going to have experienced folks coming in? Currently, in District 13, Cedric and his opponent, Ms. Orr, will be freshman. Cedric has some experience in municipal management. And the same here, we'll have 18 years with myself, and we'll have very little experience with my opponent. Everybody's going to start somewhere, but I mean, this is a time that we have to treasure with seniority. Let me say that the issues that we'll be dealing with, which are super important, are the border, securing the border. For a number of reasons, I heard today that there was over 95 folks on the IRS, FBI terror list, and that they had apprehended. There's almost 1 million gotaways. How many of those terrorists do we have in those gotaways? These cartels nowadays, they recruit in the Middle East, and they because those folks pay $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 to get into Texas or what have you. With all kind of people out there, we are going to have trouble for many, many years to come. We also have a problem with drugs, as you heard, fentanyl. Governor Abbott was here just last week on the One Pill Will Kill program. He's trying to educate young people and educate the parents that one pill of fentanyl will be deadly, and they're coming through by literally hundreds of thousands of pills. The human trafficking is a terrible, terrible tragedy, and those that die in the desert, that's the ugly face of where many dreams end, is in the desert. So those are things that we have to look at and be prepared to deal with. Let me say I'm pleased to have my wife Lynn here with me today, and we have our table set up in the back there. I'm glad to answer any questions for anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. All right, we're going to ping pong. Aaron Shank.
I'd like to stand up if that's okay. Thank you guys for coming out, and thanks to the Hispanic Leadership Network for putting this together. It's just a privilege to be here. My name is Erin Shank, and I'm a mom, the most important job in the world. My husband and I have 3 children, 2 very healthy, successful boys, and we also have a child with Down syndrome. And I want to be a voice for the disabled in Austin. My 25 years of being Rachel's mom has helped me with that. I'm also a lawyer. I've been an attorney for almost 40 years. I have represented over 6,000 Central Texans at one of the most difficult times of their life, when they were losing their home, their cars, the IRS was trying to collect from them. And I'm going to take those representational skills with me to Austin to represent you in the Texas House. I'm the owner of 2 small businesses. I own my own law firm, and my husband and I own a real estate firm. So I know how these outrageous property taxes have been hurting all of us. During my opponent's tenure, property taxes in Texas have increased over $15 billion. And I have ideas, I've written columns on them, they're on my website, on how we can reduce our property taxes by still fully funding public education, giving our teachers a raise, giving our retired teachers a cost of living raise. I am also the wife of a veteran. I have an office not only here in Waco, but one right outside of Killeen, where I represent soldiers and veterans when they're having economic and financial problems. I'm a Christian, I'm very proud of that, and I'm ready to serve you. I think we're supposed to tell you what we want to do when we represent you, how we'll represent the community. Well, I think my opponent suggested that somehow I don't have the experience or knowledge to represent you in the Texas House. I have 3 college degrees, all in political science and law, from 3 different Texas universities. And as I said earlier, I have represented over 6,000 individuals in Central Texas. So I know how to represent folks, and I know politics. My opponent is a retired veterinarian. I think you go to a veterinarian, you have a sick puppy, but when you need laws written and you need representation, I think a lawyer is the most appropriate.
1 minute.
I also think it is very important in this next legislative session that we elect more women. There are 150 members of the Texas House, but only 38 women. And as we strive to find common ground on this Roe v. Wade question, I think we need more women in the table, and I want to be one of those women. I was told by our doctor that we should consider having abortion when I was pregnant with our 3rd child, and I said no. So I have looked at that question, and let me tell you, it is so difficult which other side you sit on that, about whether or not to terminate a pregnancy, and we chose not to. And we need to have more women that have had that kind of experience at the table as we learn how to live together in this post-Roe v. Wade world. So I'm Erin Shank. Learn all about me, Erin Shank for Texas House, or on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
All right, next, Cedric Davis.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me out. I definitely want to thank the Hispanic leadership for putting this on. My name is Cedric Davis. I am a retired police chief, a retired public educator. I'm now the city manager of Marlin, Texas. I've been living in Marlin for 4 years. Coming from the big city of Dallas was an eye-opening experience for me. And let me tell you how I got into this race. And I like having what I call real talk, because I keep it real when I talk to people. The ice storm. The ice storm, when the grid went down, we had people who died in Marlin, Falls County. We didn't get help from our state. Nobody didn't come until 10, 12 days later. That's real. It took us as a village, a group of people, to come together and get volunteers and fix our water plant that went down, fix some of the other things that went down. Myself, my police chief, we traveled the byways of I-35 and slid across a couple of times. We had a volunteer out of Louisville to meet us halfway to bring us parts to fix the water plant, so we could get back up. We reached out across the country. People started volunteering to send us things. It was almost 2 weeks before our state actually got to us. We did so well that we became internationally known. And it's a phrase called Marlin Strong was coined that phrase on World News Tonight, BBC. It's because of things like that. I have experience, like I said, I've been in public service for well over 3 decades. I've served my country as a Desert Storm vet. So when I put it on the line, I put it on the line for people. I don't care what alphabet is behind your name. When I put it on the line, I fight for the things that people need. And I probably won't take the whole 3 minutes. But I just want you guys to know, when I go to Austin, and believe me, they know me down there because I'm down there a lot. And I've been down there in the past. I've even been in Washington, D.C.
1 minute.
And I remember Mr. Sessions when I visited that time. So I'm not a newbie to the fight, but I am a warrior for the people. I am the soldier. The people that I represent are the commanders. When you elect Cedric Davis, you can bet your money that you will be well represented, and that I will hold town hall talks to hear what you want for me to fight for, not for what I want. Thank you.
Next, Josh Teens.
I will say I'm not the incumbent, and I don't mind if Aubrey goes
I was going
first. So, if you want to go first.
You want to go first?
I'm happy to go first.
Okay, all right, I'm going to stop this and reset. And you
Okay. Thank you very much.
state your name and your race again.
Thank you very much. My name is Aubrey Robertson. I am running for McLennan County District Attorney. I've been telling people why I ultimately decided to get into this race, and there's a couple reasons, but one reason sticks out to me in particular. Growing up, my parents were small business owners. They owned a small used car lot in Northwest Houston, and it wasn't the best part of town. And I can remember constantly this car lot being broken into. We were constantly having the windows broken. We had the safe broken into a number of times. But what sticks out to me the most about that experience is my dad. He would take our family dog. We had a German Shepherd at the time named Lacey. He would take Lacey and his gun, and he would go sleep in the office of our car lot. Because no matter how many times we reported it to the police, no matter how many complaints were filed, nothing was getting done. And so when I get to address an organization or a group that's put on by the Hispanic Leaders Network, I immediately think of business owners, especially business owners in our minority communities. Hispanic business ownership is growing at a rate faster in the state of Texas than just about anywhere else in the country. And so when I talk about my experience with my dad and his business, I want the business owners of our community to know that they will have somebody in the district attorney's office that knows their plight, that knows when my dad had to repair that window, that money came out of his pocket. He had to pay his employees, but that money to fix the window came out of his pocket. So maybe we, the kids, didn't get something. So I tell people that's one of my main motivations for becoming or seeking this position. And the other thing that I think is most important here is addressing violent crime in our community. And I think the best way to do that is to make sure consequences happen sooner. It does nobody good if we're sentencing everybody to life in prison if they've been sitting in jail for over 1,000 days. Or if they've been out on bond, as I have clients, and I'm sure Josh does too, have been on bond for 4 years awaiting their day in court. We cannot convince criminals not to commit a crime if they know their consequences don't come immediately. And so we've got to get the backlog of cases done. I have the experience as a former prosecutor to do that. I'm asking you all for your vote. I'm asking you to tell all of your friends to vote for me. My name is Aubrey Robertson. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Josh Teens. How is everyone? This is a quiet crowd. It's a quiet crowd. Politics are supposed to get us excited, and we're in a church. It's like the two craziest things to put together. But thank you for hosting. Thank you, Hispanic leaders, for hosting. And I appreciate everybody that's here and that are watching online or might watch it later. But again, my name is Josh Teton. Some information about me. I came to Waco back in '97 to go to Baylor. And then I went to Baylor Law School, where they say fun goes to die, but it was worth all of the blood, sweat, and tears to prepare me for what's now been about 16 years of criminal law experience. Handling cases from the simplest speeding ticket in Judge Lee's court, all the way up to murder trials. And I think that that is very important because we haven't had that in the DA's office in recent history. I was also at Baylor when I met my beautiful wife. We now have 3 lovely children. People always get really excited and remember my kids' names more than mine, but we have Patriot, Glory, and Maverick. We believe that naming our kids with those strong names not only were better than the Josh and the Kelly that we had in our classes all growing up, and there were 3, 4, or 5 of us, but because we believe in our country, in our nation, and our Constitution. In fact, my daughter Glory was actually born on Constitution Day. People ask if I set that up. No, that was just a miracle. But it's very important that we teach our children those important values of our founding fathers, our Constitution, and many of those things are going directly to criminal justice matters. Like Aubrey talked about, whether it's the right to a speedy trial, we do have those cases that have been pending for years. Years. Let that sink in for a minute. That's at $80 a day, your tax dollars at work, for them sitting in our county jail, being on bond, paying sometimes for an electronic monitor. We have to absolutely address that backlog. Something else that's very important that's growing right now is mental health cases. We have a fantastic new mental health court that we need to better utilize. They offer everything from housing to medication, reuniting folks with their families. We were able to do that on 2 cases this past year, and actually got somebody all the way up to Minnesota in a snowstorm. But it was only through that mental health court that we were able to do that. And those are the kind of individuals that we need to be watching after, protecting, and getting off of our streets and getting them help. And finally, I would say that juvenile justice is another hot issue. Right now, we've got a detention center that's full, and we've got state juvenile centers that are also full and not accepting anyone else. So we have to address our juvenile justice problem as well. Again, my name is Josh Teedens. I would ask for your vote and your support. And again, thank you all for being here.
Next, we have Patricia Miller.
Good evening. Y'all can say good evening back. I was sitting over there thinking, I don't know why I wasn't part of the group that did their sitting down. After the first guy stood up, it looks like we all have to stand up. But that's okay. I am Patricia Chisholm Miller. I am your current County Commissioner for McLennan County Precinct 2. I would like to thank Pastor Andrade and the Hispanic Leaders Network for putting this event together. And if you all will allow me, I would also like to thank someone who I have worried since November of last year. My husband, Robert Miller, is here with me tonight. I have lived and been a member of the Waco-McLennan County community since I was 10 years old. I was born in Brooklyn, and like the saying is, I got to Texas as soon as I could. I attended Richfield High School and East Texas State University, and I don't know what that says about me or the institutions, but both places have changed their names and been renovated. But I came to the county in 1995, and it has been a wonderful journey. I have spent 26 years in McLennan County, and I really do think to be part of the Commissioner's Court and the McLennan County team, experience matters. I want to thank you all in 2018 for the historic victory that you all gave to our county. And by historic, I mean there are 1,000, I'm gonna speak a little faster because I'm watching the clock. There are 1,016 county commissioners in the state of Texas. 50 of those 1,016 individuals are women. 34. Like Aaron, we have to work on that. It's 50 out of the 1,000. 34 of those 1,016 individuals are African American. Only six are African American women. And so McLennan County should be proud of that historic victory. And it goes back to experience matters. I really do believe that my commitment to excellence has led to my effective leadership. Diversity matters. A democratic perspective on the Commissioner's Court matters. A democratic voice, a democratic perspective. When 4 of the 5 other members are Republican, it just matters. Diversity matters. It helps the conversation and it builds the solution to its best. Part of the question is, what will you do?
Time.
Did I hear my 1 minute? Okay, thank you.
Okay, next we have Donna Steele Wilson.
Hello, everybody. I'm Donna Steele Wilson. Everybody knows me by DL, but now the kids at my school where I'm working now are going to know that DL stands for Donna's Lee, so I'll probably get a lot of talk tomorrow coming up. So, I grew up here all my life. Been in Texas Highway Patrol for 27 years. Served public service for 31 years. Worked with TxDOT as an engineer in bridge department for almost 10 years. Went to civil engineering technology at TSTC. Like I said, I grew up here all my life. I've never left Waco. Stayed here, and this is my home, and I make it proud to be my home. We're in the midst of issues that we have in Precinct 2. Like Ms. Miller said, I am so proud of what she's doing for the health insurance and people like that, and the health care that we have in McLennan County, and that's a big part of it. But Precinct 2 is a very diverse precinct. We have, I think, around 220 road miles in Precinct 2. It goes up into North Waco and South Waco and all that, but the city of Waco takes care of all those roads. Our main concern that we have right now is we have poor roads, poor bridges. Thompson Road's been closed now for almost a year because the bridge is in disrepair, and there's been no solutions to fix those bridges. Farmers have to go miles and miles around. Homeowners have to go miles and miles around to collect their farm equipment and work on the farms. So we need to work hand in hand with the cities, and we've got issues with water. I want to help out with the water situations. We don't need to sell Waco water to everybody. City of Waco has their own water issues. So we want to make sure that we can get the local companies that sell water out into the rural areas some help, and hopefully we can figure that out for them. EMS, firefighters,
1 minute.
big thing for me. Firefighting in McLennan County, there's 27 volunteer fire departments. They get just minuscule amount of money from the county commissioners right now. I want to work on that. The response times for Riesel, Mart, Axtell for police is horrible. And if you know you've been in those shoes, if you're waiting for an ambulance to get there for your family member, it's horrible. So those are the main issues that I want to work on, and just work hand in hand with everybody in the cities. And Belmead now is in Precinct 2. There's a lot of things going on in Belmead that I can help with, and just work is what we need to. Is we got to work for all of McLennan County, not just one little sector of McLennan County. And this is not a Republican or Democrat post right here. This is for everybody that lives in McLennan County. I have my wife here tonight. We have 2 kids, great kids. I have my sister here with me, but very proud of our kids. Both of them graduated college and worked hard where they're getting at. And I had to work 3 jobs to get them through college. So I don't know how that is. Thank y'all.
Next we have Jessica Dominguez.
Like everyone else up here, I'd like to thank Hector Sabito and the Hispanic Leaders Network for inviting me up here to speak today. My name is Jessica Dominguez, and I'm your candidate for Justice of the Peace of Precinct 5. I was born and raised here in Waco to a teenage mother. Because of her dedication to raise a strong, educated Hispanic woman, it is evident here today before you. My education is not the only thing that I have going for myself. You ask about my education? My mother made sure I graduated from high school and went on to get a bachelor's degree from Baylor University in finance and real estate. I will currently be graduating in December of 2022, so I'm campaigning and getting my master's degree and being a mother with my MBA from Baylor in cybersecurity. Because of her sacrifices to not give up, I was able to achieve those things, and she taught me a lot of great values. She taught me the values of obeying the law and respecting the justice system. When I'm elected as your Justice of the Peace of Precinct 5, my goal is not to rebuild the strong foundation that Judge Villarreal has built. He has done a great job and has impacted a lot of lives. My goal is to take that one step further involving the truancy court. You ask, what will I do for my community? I would like to work closely with the schools to educate our children on the importance of not ending up in truancy court, because knowledge is key and prevention is key in keeping the children out. I know Josh spoke about that. How do we keep the children out of the justice system? So, my name is Jessica Dominguez. I know you can see that my education, my strong work history, 16 years of working in management leader positions, have prepared me to work within my community and to do a great job for the community that comes before me. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna get on to the questions now because I think we've got to. Oh, I'm so sorry. Jumping ahead now, Lucienne Sanchez y Miramontes.
Good evening, I'm Lucienne Sanchez Miramontes. Thank you so much. I am the candidate for Justice of the Peace Precinct 5. I'm also the current mayor of Beverly Hills, the small city that Family, Faith, and Worship is located in. They do an amazing job in building bridges here with not only the city, but the constituents here in this town. And that's a legacy I want to continue. A lot of people ask the question, why did you want to vote? Well, here it is. I was asked to run for JP from a long-standing, hard-working woman here in McLennan County. She approached me, and I think that it is amazing to have female candidates, female representation, and I think the best thing that we can do as women is to continue to support each other, lift each other up, and do well in representing our counties, our courts, and our states. A lot of people have asked about my experience. I've been involved with Beverly Hills since I was 24 years old. I sat on the council at 32. I left, moved to New Mexico for a couple of years and came back. And as soon as I was eligible, I got right back on the city council to help improve our city. Now, being a mayor is different from being for JP, but I have been able to build better bridges with our community, especially county services, with rebuilding and promoting community policing with our police chiefs, with getting our police staffed with the latest equipment needed for proper policing. Those are things that are important to me, but one thing that you have to do is you have to be able to build those bridges, you have to be able to build and maintain those relationships. I have that experience, not only serving in the public. I do have a paralegal degree, so I do have a background, a legal background and a paralegal aspect, but I am happy to represent Precinct 5 and continue Judge Villarreal's legacy, but also to educate the public what the JP does and how we serve you. I feel that is the one key component that has been missing from that particular seat for years, is again, to build those bridges and let people know how the JP serves you, the community.
All right, now we're gonna jump into it. question is, it's the congressional candidate question. Our state and nation have lost jobs due to COVID-19. The economy needs to be rebuilt. What policy steps should Congress take beyond stimulus money or bailouts in the next year to create as many jobs and as much prosperity as possible?
Thank you very much. I think everybody in this country knows that there's some 5 million jobs right now that are going begging. There are jobs all across this country that many people could, would, and should take. The problem that we have is we have an administration that still has federal government employees without going back to work. The Office of Professional Management, OPM, still has not issued instructions for federal government employees to go back to work. They have also encouraged many school systems to have teachers not go to work. They have across this country encouraged people to stay at home, and it has placed a huge burden not only upon employers, but also upon the school systems that we have. Today, there is a brand new report showing that the largest failure in the United States history has occurred in mathematics and in science in the last 2 years as a result of COVID. I've had COVID. I also took all my shots that were necessary. And I believe that we do recognize and need to recognize that there are people who could be impacted and could be impacted severely. But to have a blanket across the board rules and regulations by this federal government are simply wrong. Another example is we're allowing people to come across our border with no shots, with no information about their background. And they're coming into this country without a history of shots, whether it be measles or other types of things. And there's no requirement that this government places upon these people to be a part of a safety net that we expect from others. Lastly, the federal government is laying off what might be 100,000 members of our United States military, men and women who serve and serve proudly as volunteers. And the President of the United States is issuing dictates to them where they will lose their job. So I would encourage us to know that the federal government has taken a strong hand in encouraging people not to go to work, to seek public assistance, and to not move forward despite all the appearances that this COVID has moved on a long, long time ago. So I would say to small business people and employers all over the state, I think that it will be an advantage in the future where as employers look to move to Texas to find out that we have employees and employers who will go to work to produce goods and services. Thank you.
I'm gonna try something different now. Okay. This is for state representative candidates. So, assuming your victory, choose a single issue you would prioritize in the coming term, name it, and describe what you want to accomplish. Sorry.
Yes, state representative.
We'll do that.
3 state representatives and candidates, so which one?
I'll jump in. All right. Ready?
Love to do
Here we
this.
go.
It would be called Rachel's Law. What my opponent voted for and danced in the streets of Waco when it was passed was the law after Roe v. Wade fell that subjected our doctors to life in prison, a $100,000 penalty, and loss of a medical license if they assist a woman with a troubled pregnancy. I've had one of those troubled pregnancies, and I sure am glad that there was no threat on Dr. James Norwood as I delivered Rachel. I've had to make tough decisions for myself, reproductive health decisions that I shared with you, but also those same kind of decisions for my daughter Rachel, now that we have no exception for rape, incest, or in my opinion, life of the mother, due to these terrible penalties that we put on our doctors, our nurses, and our medical staff. Just yesterday, I was talking to an OBGYN, who's the third OBGYN I've talked to since I've been in this race, about how important it is to take this terrible law off of the backs of our doctors and nurses when they're trying to deliver babies and their problems and their complications. I hate abortion. I'd love to make it where there was never another abortion in McLennan County. But the way we get there is through prevention and education. And we have to take this law off of the doctors. That's why the name of the law would be Rachel's Law. That's my daughter. When I had to make the decisions on how to save her life, because there was no exception for rape and a pregnancy would kill her. That's one of the reasons that I'm standing here and I'm so adamant on this. So let's find a way, let's put women at the table like me to find productive solutions on how we come together as a community on this post-Roe v. Wade world, and we take these terrible penalties off our doctors, hospitals, and medical facilities.
Doc?
Thank you. One of the problems that sure affects everybody, and that is with our taxes, and the taxes as they continue to grow and grow and grow. And as the state grows, so does the tax burden. There's so much more services that we need. What the state is doing, I think, has some potential. That is, we've put a cap on the state spending. That is the kind of trying to slow the state spending, and the state of Texas has adhered to that the last several sessions. It's actually a statute now. It's not in the Constitution. I'd like to see the Constitution. But basically, it's the population and inflation. So if we stay within that, we're staying within a more or less balanced budget. We've had some caps on the counties and the cities and schools. Schools 2.5%, counties is 3.5%, and cities at 3.5%. So that's kind of a little bit of a trigger, if you would, on the lower end of government spending. And so with those two restraints, then any excess revenue, and we've been doing this, last year was about $6 billion, the year before that was about $4 billion, that we buy down school M&O. School M&O, maintenance and operation, that's kind of the checkbook, if you would, that's the teachers and what have you. That is the largest part of your tax burden. And so by buying down the M&O, that kind of helps everybody across the board and hopefully minimize the property tax. Personally, I'd like to see about 50-50. It's kind of morphed over the years where the state takes about 40% and the schools, the property takes about 40%, and 40 and 60%, and we'd like to see that closer to 50-50 where the state's kind of carrying more of its weight. The other aspect that you talked about, and we'll have to see how that comes along, is expanding the sales tax base. It would be almost impossible to increase the sales tax, because even going over the point would drive a lot of the business to our contiguous states or to Mexico or to the internet. And so there's not much future in that. We don't want to hurt the mom and pops, but you can expand the sales tax base. I'm not promoting that myself, but that's something that's talked about, and we'll have to look at and investigate where businesses that aren't covered currently would be covered in the sales tax base. It's projected that if you do all of that, it'd be about another $1 billion. But we need to try and diminish the burden of property tax on everybody, particularly as the appraisals are going sky high. That's the real extension of freedom, so people can do what they would like, and so they can use their savings the way they like to see it. And so that's an approach I think that would work. It's sellable, that is, people can kind of understand how it works. And we've been doing it for the last couple of sessions, so I think that's what we need to continue to go forward. So, thank you.
I'm gonna take about 15 seconds because I left off something. I was the first African American mayor of Balch Springs, Texas. I sat on the North Texas Super Bowl committee. 2018, I ran for Texas governor. Out of 9 candidates in the primary, I came in 3rd place, so I came close. So I want to get that out there. So So experience does count, just like everybody says experience count. But the first thing I would do, I would like to take on voter suppression. Everybody up here told you what they want to do, but guess what? Everybody down in Austin is making those decisions for you. Why not put it on the ballot and let Texans vote on it? Women's rights, let Texans vote on it. Taking the Medicaid expansion, let Texans vote on it. So right now, minorities, African Americans, we have been always promised we're gonna fix the voting. But the gerrymandering maps, they're taking away voting polling places. I got a problem with that. And I know it's plenty other Texans have a problem with that. Free country, free state. That means give us the right to have a say in our governance. So on major issues, they should be taken to the ballot. So when I go to Austin, because I already claimed it, I'm in the Lord's house, so I already claimed this victory. That is gonna be something that one of my primary things I wanna fight for. But it's not gonna be just me. It's gonna be everybody in my district once I host these town halls, put together a team, and we're gonna attack that. If we gotta go back to put it the way it was, where Texas is under federal guidelines of how they hold their elections, that's what it needs to be. But the people, the Texans in general, need to have a say in how we're governed, and that's what we're not getting. Thank you.
All right, this next question is for district attorney candidates. So studies show racial disparities in drug law enforcement, despite the fact that white people and people of color use and sell drugs at the same rate. What would you do to minimize these disparities? We're going to start with Josh Teens.
Well, over the last 16 years, I've seen that doing criminal defense work. My dad was a police officer for 46 years. And one of the things that he told me when he retired, and he has since passed, but he said, the problem today is there's not enough training for law enforcement officers. We are in a very difficult position where we have a need for more law enforcement officers, and we're trying to recruit them faster than we used to have to. And the result of that, unfortunately, has been less training. So one of the things that I hope to offer at the district attorney's office are options and opportunities to train and go to them. They have a very different job than the district attorney's office does. By no means do I think that I need to dictate what they do and they do not do. But if there's certain cases that we can help with, I want to do that. If there's certain investigations the DA's office can help with, I want to do that too. And I think, again, through that training, through that preparation, we will be able to see those numbers change in Clinton County. And that's going to be across the board for any crime, because she's right. These crimes, it doesn't matter where you're from, it doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter what you look like. I've represented somebody that has committed one of those offenses repeatedly over the last 16 years. So again, I think, that goes back to experience and knowledge of the law, and being able to understand what has been happening out in our community and reach solutions, again, with help of law enforcement to make changes. Thank you.
So I think this is an interesting question because as a prosecutor, it was very rare that I knew the race of the individual whose file I was looking at on my desk. I had a filing cabinet with 500 cases in it when I was the chief prosecutor of the 19th District Court. I couldn't tell you the race of any of those individuals, and oftentimes I didn't see the race until we got into the courtroom. And so Josh is right, the training that has to take place is training at the local law enforcement level. We have to talk about things like over-policing in certain communities. But one thing that we also need to do is talk about reforming our drug laws. For the love of God, legalize marijuana. Make it so that we are not imprisoning and incarcerating individuals and spending money on those individuals while other states are profiting Tens of millions of dollars are getting reinvested in local communities, are getting reinvested in law enforcement agencies. Millions and millions of dollars are going to schools and to teachers. Let's look at our drug laws. By the time a case ends up on my desk, there's not a lot I can do other than look at that case, make a decision about what I think justice is, and go forward. But if we can stop those cases, those drug cases from ever being filed, if we can work, like Josh said, to divert people from the criminal justice system, we can solve that problem. But I think, reject a little bit the idea that the criminal justice system is systemically racist.
1 minute.
I don't believe it is. I think it is systemically inefficient. And I think ultimately those due process violations that exist, that occur as a result of that systemic inefficiency, disproportionately impact people of color. But if we're not talking about economic status as well, as addition to racial makeup, we're only having half the conversation. And so my goal would be to evaluate every case, make a decision about what I think justice is, but I'll tell you right now, I have no interest in prosecuting marijuana laws. Thank you.
This next question is for county commissioner candidates. What do you see as the most pressing needs for infrastructure or capital projects in your county? Let's start with Patricia Miller.
First, let me take a few seconds, and I'm going to apologize to the moderator and the timekeeper, but I do like that music. I think that music is going to be better for us than her whispering in my ear. And I'd like to say, to kind of wrap up my first question, please go to my campaign website, patriciamillercampaign.com. Promises made, promises kept, the things that I said that I would do in 2018 are outlined on there, and the fact that they have been done and how they were done are outlined on there, and they're all verifiable through county records. But when it comes to in front of us, the challenges for infrastructure, when you look out into the county, I am proud of our partnership with TSTC and the City of Waco and the Waco Industrial Foundation on the new training center that we are going to be building out in the Industrial Parkway to help train Waco's own. We have done a great job of bringing in those large corporations into our county that are paying the $15 plus health benefits. We've done a great job of bringing them in, but they need skilled, trained workers. And that's where we're a little weak. And so instead of recruiting people to come in and take the jobs we spend so much time bringing in, we're going to grow our own with that training center. And I'm going to make sure that the people in Precinct 2 and all of McLennan County, but Precinct 2 elects me. There are 3 other county commissioners for the other precincts, and they take care of their own. I'm going to take care of my own in Precinct 2 and make sure.
All right, next, Donis, Dio, we'll call you Dio.
That's okay, thank you. And I want to start off, kind of want to get in their business, but marijuana is a gateway drug, and we don't need to legalize marijuana. I've been seeing it for all my career in law enforcement. Car crashes, domestic assaults, marijuana leads to bad drugs. So we do not, in Texas, need to legalize marijuana. All right, infrastructure in McLennan County. City of Waco has a city council. They help the road and bridges in the city. The infrastructure in the McLennan County rural area is in horrible shape. It's been like that for about 30 years now. You can't patch and piecemeal things together. You have to do it right. With my engineering background and my ties to TxDOT, and I still have plenty of folks that I talk to there, we have to get these bridges and these roads back safe so our kids and our school buses, our EMS and our firefighters can travel down these roads along with other motor and public can be in a safe way. All the crashes I've worked with the guardrails, the signage, And speaking with employees at Precinct 2 right now, they have no leadership out there. And they want to work hard, and they want to do the right things, but they just don't have any leadership. They don't get any training when they go to certain areas to learn how to run machinery or to inspect bridges. I inspected bridges for about 5 years, and I know what to look for bridges. I'm going to be a little different kind of commissioner. I'm not going to sit behind a desk. I'm not going to have my thumbs on top of everybody, but I'm going to be out there being a part of it and make these roads safe for us. There's a lot of things a commissioner can do, and your taxes are paid for all of McLean County. But Precinct 2 is a huge district, and we have to really take care of everybody in Precinct 2. Axtell had no representation for the landfill that City of Waco wants to put out there. Not one voice from the county commissioner's court. And that's horrible because those people vote to put you in the office out there. We had 39% of voter turnout in 2018, and you can agree with that. That's horrible, isn't it? 39% of Precinct 2 came out and voted in 2018. If you're going to just come out and vote, just come out and vote. Vote for me or her, but vote. And that's the way you get your voice heard. Thank you.
This next question is for Justice of the Peace candidates. What is your vision for the future of McLennan County? What changes would you advocate for? We're going to start with Lucian Sanchez y Miramontes.
I have to ask a follow-up question. Specifically, McLennan County?
Yes.
I mean, JP, or what we want to see with the county as a whole?
What changes would you advocate for and why?
Well, in the scope of Justice of the Peace, the biggest advocacy that I would push for, again, would be to educate our parents on the importance of sending your student to school, working with landlords on the Texas Code for proper eviction processes. JPs do many things as far as McLennan County, but again, to go back to the core of it, it's to go back to build that bridge with your community that you're representing as Justice of the Peace. Education has always been one of my top things to push. Anytime I talk to children from elementary all the way to high school, I tell them, always go to school. It's important to go to school, and it's important to read. So for McLennan County, again, my vision for them would be, we all know Waco ISD schools, or if you don't know about Waco ISD schools, if you talk to the parents in the schools, they say they feel they have no support from the administration. That the administration will give a paragraph answered, standard answered, and they'll send their kid off the way. They feel they have zero support when it comes to bullying, when it comes to homework. So again, my biggest outreach would be to build that bridge with the school, because it all begins with education, it all begins with our children, and it begins with fostering that relationship with parents. Socioeconomic backgrounds are an impact here in South Waco. We have single mother households, we have single father households, but we have single family households here in South Waco, and they need support. And again, it would be to build those bridges between those families and the community around them, so they know that they have the support they need for themselves, not to only be successful, but their child to be successful in our school district. Thank you.
My vision for Precinct 5 is to also build a bridge with law enforcement and the community, because the Justice of the Peace Office is just that. What I would like to do is what I spoke about earlier in my introduction, is I wouldn't like to destroy the foundation that Judge Villarreal has created within the truancy court. I would like to educate our children on how to stay out of that court. I would like for them to understand the burden, the financial burden that they put on their parents financially, because there are fees involved. I would like to get to the root cause on why these children are having such a hard time getting to class. What is preventing them from getting their education. As you know, here in America, here in Texas, it is the law to go to public school. You must go to school. We are fortunate here in America that as a woman of color, that I am able and my children are able to obtain an education. You go to many other countries and women are not allowed to get educated. People of color are not allowed to get educated. So education is key and knowledge is power. Once again, I understand this deeply because of the deep foundation that my teenage mother set forth within me to get my education, to not use excuses onto why I could not get to the schoolhouse. If she had to carry me to school, she did in the rain when we couldn't find any transportation to get there. She knew that the way she was going to break the systematic stereotypes of Hispanic women was to make sure that I wound up in that schoolhouse every day. So, what I would like to change from McLennan County, I would like all the justices of the peace to get together and to go into our schools and set up a program to once again educate our children on the importance and the legalities behind getting an education. Thank you.
Okay, these questions now come from some of the audience here today. The first one is for Pete Sessions. 2 years ago, you invited a group of Hispanic leaders to talk to you. I was blessed to be one of the leaders invited. During the meeting, you said if re-elected, you would send a Hispanic student to Washington as an intern. However, that never happened. If you are re-elected, will you consider sending a Hispanic student, high school student, to Washington? Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. The circumstances in Washington meant that we had a number of universities. We have Texas Tech University, we have Baylor University, and we have Texas A&M. We interviewed and tried to select a number of different students, and in fact, one of the two of the programs that we've had did in fact have Hispanics and African Americans. They were not. One girl graduated, young girl graduated from Baylor, an African American girl, and we hired her. She's now a member of our permanent staff. But the others came from a program, a national program run by Congressman Ken Buck out of Colorado. It is my hope that what we will have is an opportunity that within the Texas A&M, Texas Tech, or Baylor program, that they would select our office, and it just is a matching process. We tried to do it, and we're going to try again. Thank you.
This next question is for Josh Cheatons and Aubrey Robertson. What experience do you have that qualifies you for this office?
Great question. So for the last 16 years, like I said, I have practiced criminal law. At Baylor Law School, I did a criminal law concentration, somewhat similar to a major. Like I said, I've tried cases everything from parking tickets, speeding tickets, on up to major aggravated assault cases, and even murder. Aubrey has some experience both doing defense and prosecution that I'm sure he will get up and explain to you. But I think one of the greatest advantages of having my defense experience is knowing exactly how to evaluate a case and what to expect when it comes to trial, knowing what the holes might be, knowing what the defense will try to attack. And again, going back to the previous question about law enforcement training, being able to educate them on just that, explaining if you go to trial and if you testify to this, this is going to be a problem. If you go to trial and you haven't produced this witness, that will be a problem. And so using that education that I have just through experience over many, many years in many different courtrooms, different judges, different counties, I think that I am best qualified to lead that office, help train those prosecutors, and law enforcement officers when they're testifying and preparing a case for trial so that they can do what's best and then make sure, again, that justice has been served.
So I started my legal career as a prosecutor in Harris County, one of the largest prosecutor's offices in the country. I started as a baby prosecutor, it's called, in the misdemeanor division, and I got my bar results on a Thursday, and I was told you're gonna be in trial on Monday. I was handed a stack of cases, and I remember going to trial. My first trial was what we called a no test, no accident DWI. This is somebody who had been pulled over for speeding. The officer thought he was intoxicated, didn't get a blood sample, didn't get a breath sample. So the only evidence I had as this brand new, very green, very young lawyer was this guy's slurred speech on the video. And so my chief told me, you're going to trial on this case this morning. So that's what I did. I went in and picked a jury. And from that moment on, I fell in love with standing up and saying, my name is Aubrey Robertson and I represent the people of the state of Texas. Because that's what a prosecutor does. A prosecutor goes into court and represents the people of the state of Texas, the people of our county, our community. I have experience doing exactly that. Like Josh, I've handled every case from a speeding ticket to a murder. The difference is I've prosecuted those cases. There are people that are sitting in prison right now who will never leave because I put them there. Because the crimes they committed in our community were so heinous that it deserved a life sentence. And I'll tell you right now, there are cases pending in the DA's office right now that I absolutely believe deserve the death penalty. There are over 50 murders pending in that office right now. We cannot do what McLennan County has done now twice, which is send somebody to the DA's office to be the chief prosecutor, the person at the top of that pyramid who has no prosecutorial experience. Our last two elected DAs had never served a day as a prosecutor. Abel Reyna, never a day as a prosecutor. We saw how that ended. Barry Johnson, never a day as a prosecutor, much less a criminal defense attorney in Dallas. We see how that is ended. We cannot continue to make the same decision to send somebody with no prosecutorial experience to that office and expect a different result. That is, by definition, insanity. Thank you.
Okay, this next question is for Doc Anderson and Aaron Shank. What was your reason for voting for SB 187 to, I guess that's the, okay. Can we get another battery too, please, for the microphone? What was your reason for voting for SB 187, and this was during the 2021 session, regarding changes to the electoral process? What would you do to amend legislation, if any, to SB 1? And basically, this is relating to the election integrity and security, including preventing fraud in the conduct of state elections, increasing criminal penalties, creating criminal offenses, et cetera, et cetera. Here, you can use it. You got it? You got it? Okay, go for it.
Thank you. Let me use a little poetic license here first, because several things are mentioned here I think is super important. One of them is where these courts are stacked up like they are and backed up, and how much that costs the county, and the inhumanity of somebody being left in jail for 2 years, 3 years when they're trying to do that. I'm very pleased, Judge Felton asked me last time to carry bill for a new county court of law and a new state district court, 2 courts in one session. I was able to do that and get both those passed. Out of the 100 bills that, the 100% of bills that I carried, I passed, which was very unusual. There's only a handful of legislators have that success, and was able to get those 2 courts for Waco. And Judge Luna is one of them. He's appointed. He's already cleared 1,800 cases, and will continue to do that. And the new judge for the 474th State District Court will be picked by the governor probably right after the election. And so that's one important. One other little poetic license, I think it's really important, which is mentioned here about trying to establish bridges between kiddos and authority. The NAACP had an outstanding idea. A couple of years ago at one of the barbecues there, they were handing out a little card, and basically it says what to do when encountering law enforcement. And it says, be respectful, answer the questions, show your hands, don't run. Simple little things that should be put out in every DA's office, every state office, every school, to tell these kids, don't make things worse by trying to settle that score on the streets. You might have to take a ride and go to the court and get that thing settled in a much more civil manner. And I think that would save a lot of youngsters a lot of trouble. Voter integrity. Oftentimes people say, well, there's nothing improved about voter integrity, that it's just kind of a one or two here or there. Actually, there were several newspaper articles that we researched last go around that showed that the one had 700, it was a Politico, I think they called them, 700 cases where he'd gone around to elderly people and taken their ballots and turned them into what he wanted to do. 700. A lot of these elections are turned by 100 votes, never mind 700. But there's multiple cases of that, and Democrats and Republicans alike asking for laws to strengthen voter integrity. One of the simple things that we did was to try and make it easier to clear the voter rolls. If somebody's passed away, and it's 2 or 3 years later, it's just crazy because it just is open to problems and usury. Or if people moved. And so we tried to do some things there for Secretary of State to clear that quickly. Trying to protect those that are disabled or what have you. Kind of what happened last time exactly. Well, thank you.
SB 1 was a voter suppression law. And it was one of the most horrific laws that was ever passed in the Texas legislature, and my opponent voted for it. Because of that law, 24,000 disabled and elderly people's ballots were thrown out in the March primary. 160 of those lived in Texas, without not one drop of evidence that disabled or elderly people cheat when they vote. It was totally unnecessary. I drove to Austin and lobbied against it, and our legislator ignored. And I was there with Patricia Miller, and we lobbied him to not suppress our vote. I have a shirt that I wear with pride. It says, "Our vote is sacred." And this gentleman, my opponent, doesn't respect our right to vote. Let me give you another example. This law says we can only have one drop-off location in an entire county to drop off ballots. And that was passed in the middle of the pandemic, when people like me that have a disabled child couldn't get out and were scared to do anything, go to the grocery store, go into an elections office, whatever. In Harris County, one of the biggest counties in the nation, one drop-off box, without one drop of evidence that people that drop their ballot in a box are cheating. This is the kind of terrible representation that we don't need to have in McLennan County anymore. Our vote is sacred. I would vote to repeal SB 1 in its entirety. We want to encourage voting. It's America. We all have a better country when all of our voices are heard.
This next question is for the Justice of the Peace candidates. Last school year, Waco ISD lost a lot of money due to truancy. Students who are chronically absent fall behind academically, and this can lead to dropouts in school. What are your plans to hold parents and guardians accountable? Ms. Ann.
Yes, COVID impacted Waco ISD a lot. A lot of parents were scared to send their children to school. The other thing that I might add that has impacted attendance currently with our schools are school shootings. I've spoken to parents here in Waco ISD in the South Waco community, and at the elementary level, they feel that they have that communication, but once they get to that middle school and high school level, the biggest feedback is that parents are no longer engaged in their students' school activity starting right at that 7th grade level. We have parents that are disengaged with not only their student, but with the school. Our PTAs, which are critical in my finding in getting parent-teacher relationships associated. My mother served as PTA president when I was in high school to help build those bridges. We have to get parents involved. The one thing that I would like to avoid, but again, once I'm trained and I become familiar with the code, with truancy, is the socioeconomic impact. As I mentioned previously, we have single-family households. And one thing that I feel is important is that the JP court does not become what's called a debtor's court, which is where you have a repeat offender and you just keep finding them and finding them and finding them and finding them to the point where they say, well, look, you find me so much, now I can't do that. Again, it goes back to building those relationships with the administration downtown, with the county services that are offered by McLennan County, services that are offered by the city of Waco. Again, it is holding parents responsible to give them the tools, but you also want to make sure that you're giving due process to them so that they don't repeat and they take their child's education seriously.
Sure. So the question is, last year, Waco ISD lost a lot of money due to truancy. Students who are chronically absent fall behind academically, and this can lead to them dropping out of school. What are your plans to hold parents and guardians accountable?
Well, the law has been put into place to hold the parents and guardians accountable. I know we talked about not fining individuals over and over and over again, so that is why it's the importance for the school board administration to get to the bottom of what is causing these children not to come to school. We can use COVID as an excuse, but we saw our school districts band together, offer free internet, free iPads for our children to become educated. What we need to do is stop making excuses and start thinking about solutions as a community. Our community rests on the future of our children and the education of our children. If the parents aren't engaged or understand if there is a communication barrier, then maybe we should get more people within the schools as well who can meet them where they are and to bring them along. As for school shootings and using that excuse on not to get an education or not to go to school, I disagree. I think that our community here has done a great job of putting security in place for our children. And lastly, because I am a conservative, I believe that we should bring God back into our schools. I believe that standing up every day and saying the Pledge of Allegiance and honoring our great nation is also what we need to do, because that's how I was raised. I was raised to be a patriot for my country, and I was raised to appreciate God, and in God we trust. So, education is key, knowledge is power, and we must get to the parents and figure out what is keeping them from taking their children to school so they don't experience these fines.
1 minute. All right, so there was a school shooting shooting today in St. Louis, I believe. Yes, 2 people killed, 10 injured. What are your plans to stop school violence? Enough is enough. This has to stop. This is for the Texas House Congress candidate.
Texas House and Congress?
And the Texas House and congressional candidate.
Thank you very much. The issue of school shootings is very apparent that we have a problem in this country. We have a problem that primarily is dealing with 17, 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. This issue has been highlighted many times all across the country for a number of years. And there is a lot of data that is available about who is doing this, under what circumstances they are being found. The number one issue is found to be students who have failed to find their way in a classroom without being either made fun of, bullied, or they become isolated. And the isolation of a number of these students places them in a position where they're not in the mainstream, what I would call the mainstream. The best part of the evidence that we found comes out of the University of Michigan. The Department of Justice has empowered the University of Michigan, and they found out that engaging students in the classroom every day, where there are people, counselors or teachers, who come into contact with these students to try and determine their level of participation in the things that they do, has a significant impact off what we might call some sadness or some bit of isolation. The schools are overwhelmed. Schools are overwhelmed in trying to spot students. The number of issues that come on with the student many times are beyond the grasp of the school to solve. They're social economic. It is not unusual that they get engaged in trying to talk to students about problems at home. And so what I would say to us is that here in McLennan County and around this immediate area, we took on this issue head on. We formed a task force through the Region 12 here, and the school system has found ways that they spot and identify these students. They have programs of working with the police departments, the sheriff's department, and in particular our sheriff, Parnell McNamara, and Lieutenant, who is there, Cody Blossman, have taken an extensive amount of time to go and make sure that they talk to the principals, they talk to the schools, because they found out that many times when they showed up, they didn't even know their counterparts. And so I think a lot of work is being done which will rectify this circumstance.
Okay, I'm not trying to be funny, but y'all understand all that stuff. Well, I was an educator. I was a police chief of a school district. I've had to close down a school district because of an active shooter. Okay, so I know it for real. In rural areas of Texas, how many sheriffs come out to the school to talk to the students or the teachers? Nobody come talk, let's be real. But in reality, it's the relationship that those teachers build with the students. I'm gonna give you something that I did, like a little test when I was a teacher. I asked my students, don't put any names on your paper, but tell me what if he only knew. The student told me they was getting ready to commit suicide and even shoot up school one time. But Mr. Davis, what you told me last week that I was worth something changed. It made me feel like I was somebody. I'm a court kid from the project. I've heard those same things. I was bullied, wasn't gonna amount to nothing. Now, I got multiple degrees. I'm currently a student in Syracuse. So it's what we believe and what we teach these students, believing in them, let them know they're worth something. Okay? It starts with, even if the parents are struggling to take care of these kids or even talk to their kids, it's always someone in that school that can relate to students. It's always that favorite teacher, that favorite principal. So let's get them the tools, let's give them the resources, put counselors in there. Let's get them the training, the professional development that they need to recognize certain things. Then, let's see about, then we can bring in law enforcement. Because first of all, a student ain't gonna talk to law enforcement. But they will talk to a counselor, they will talk to a teacher, they even talk to a clergyman and other students. Make sure there are programs that other students can give information and that they're protected when they get that information. So, let's get together, make sure we have the resources on the ground that we can fund these schools. A lot of these schools barely have any money. Let the state and the federal government fund these programs, give them to local school districts so they can put those funds to use to create a program that will work. I know this because I live this. So, like I tell you, I don't think I'm a true politician because, like I said, I take certain things to heart. Dealing with students is something I take to heart. When I started, I said I wasn't going to be the greatest teacher, but I had to put 52 kids into college. Some of them didn't even think they were going to make it. Some of them had criminal backgrounds, but they went on to college and did something because I was that student. And I'm sorry for getting personal, please forgive me, but certain things triggers me to, it's emotional. And when I hear a bunch of baloney, when it can be fixed by adults, that's what we need to do. Thank you, I'm sorry.
The Uvalde shooting really touched my heart, as I know it touched so many of yours. In fact, I participated with my good friend Lucianne in a vigil, and I read the names of all the children and teachers at that vigil. I can remember dropping Rachel off at a large public school here in Waco, and the only thing that let me drop her off was that special ed is in the back of the school and a back door, and these shooters typically come in the front door. I thought by the time they get all the way back to the special ed class, maybe the police will have arrived and the shooter will have been stopped. So I've been right there. And every time I hear one of these school shooting stories, you know what I always say? Where is his mother? I have two young boys, 27 and 26, and if they were having problems that were that extreme, that they would do something that extreme, I would know about it. In this last session of Congress, a bill was passed that is going to bring money to the state so we can study our red flag laws. Red flags are laws that allow when someone is acting crazy, someone's got a gun, someone, their mother is saying there's something serious going on here. We can call the authorities, we can give them due process, and we can try to protect that. A strong red flag law would have stopped the El Paso shooter. His mother called the police and said, my son is acting crazy, he's armed, and the police said, I'm sorry, ma'am, we can't do anything about it because we didn't have red flag laws. In Uvalde, the child who was the shooter, his nickname was School Shooter. Okay, how much more of a red flag can you have than that? But these red flag laws can impact our Second Amendment rights, our Fourth Amendment rights, and due process. So we are being given this money to study these laws and to make sure they don't impair the Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, or due process rights. The Shank family is proud gun owners. We are very, very proud of our Second Amendment rights. My husband is a veteran. He fought for our country. So I think what we can do to help all these shootings, not just the schools, but they also occur, as we know, unfortunately, in churches and in malls and in Walmarts, is to study the red flag laws. Congress is giving money to the Texas legislators to study that, and let's elect a lawyer who made the highest grade in her class in constitutional law when she was in law school to help study those laws to make sure they don't violate the Constitution. Thank you.
Uvalde was a terrible, terrible episode, and the mother was actually also drug addicted, and the grandfather was also a drug dealer. But one of the common themes that you see in these school shootings is chronic marijuana use. That's one of the things that normal, and those folks, they want to kind of bury those studies. But that causes psychosis chronic, not just somebody smoking a joint. But if they're doing that, and generally those that feel isolated and feel bullied, they'll turn to something like that. And that causes, over time, causes psychosis, which causes these problems. The one deal we passed last year that I think would be very helpful, I'd like to see it pushed out there a little bit more, is a situation where at the region, like Region 12 here, the region service centers, that they have access to a child psychiatrist and psychologist. Most folks don't know where to go to get those resources. They don't have the money to get those resources. So the parents, and it's parent-driven too, which is important. If the parent suspects that they're having a problem with their child's not doing right, they can actually go through Region 12 to get those kind of resources and get the help for these mental conditions. And so that's something, like I say, I'd like to see that pushed out there more so more parents are aware of that. It's a tragedy, sure enough. The red flag laws, I think we got to put the cart before the horse, or vice versa. The constitutionality of that is an issue, and it needs to be looked at for sure. But we need to definitely approach these problems where they take effect. I had a bill I passed personally, session before last. It's called, I call it Boy Scouts, but it's the Patriotic Society. That is, Congress has identified 36 groups of children. That is Sea Scouts, Future Farmers America, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and they, those can, if their organization requests the schools, they have to give them, it's mandated that they give them 10 minutes before the start of the school year to where those kids can be recruited and join that. And if you get these kids into a goal-oriented thing with the uniform, with other kids, where they have a place to go, you're absolutely right, Cedric. They have a place to go with latchkey kids and that type of thing. That would do a lot more than put another $20 million into the education system in Texas. We passed that law over the Texas Association of School Boards. Texas killed that. But I think it really does help because it gets those youngsters involved in a positive organization to help with their sense of wealth and worth, and I think that would be a big help. Thank you.
I just wanted to go off again. There we go. All right. So that was our last question for this evening. I'm so glad all of you were able to come here. I think we all loosened up after a little while and got comfortable with each other. I'm so glad that people are watching us online as well on Facebook. I want to wish you all the best in your races. I'm so glad that I was able to be your moderator this evening. We've all learned a lot more. I feel like I've known some of you, but I feel like we've all learned a lot more about your positions and where you stand. Right now, I want to turn the program over to HLN Political for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Keisha. You've done a wonderful job moderating today. And thank you to all of our candidates who deeply care and are vested for our community, our state, and our country. So let's give our candidates a big round of applause as well. Also, let's thank Pastor Ruben Andrade and the HLN so that we could have this political forum. We really appreciate all the work that you put behind getting this pulled together. I also want to just let you know it takes a village to coordinate events like this, and I want to recognize a few of our board members, the Hispanic Leader board members that are here with us. So we have Dr. Ileana Newman, if you could stand, please.
The best principal in Waco, Kendrick Elementary, which is just a few blocks away. principal based in Florida. And also we have from South Waco Elementary, he's a parent and community liaison and facilitator, Mr. Adrian Fajardo. You could see that there. Also, let's give Hector Sabito an behind the scenes, pulling things together to make it happen. He is the man that does that. And then I'd also like to thank Jesse Bordeo, who's behind the scenes all the time for audio video. Also, the HLN webmaster. If you have not visited the HLN website, please do so. It's amazing. A lot of great information. Past events are recorded. They're stored there. So please make sure that you are checking that out as well. So I want to personally invite you to our next event. We have what we call the Hispanic Leaders Network Conectar, which means connect in English. It will be held on Friday, November the 11th, beginning at 11:30 a.m. at Hillcrest Baylor Scott and White Medical Center. Dr. Ileana Newman will speak on demystifying the stigma behind mental health. It's okay to talk about it. This event is open to the public and is sponsored by Hillcrest Baylor Scott and White, and lunch will be provided. Please make sure that you visit our website or our social media page to register for the event. Also, we would like to remind you that it is important for you to go and vote, irrespective of what candidate you vote for. Hopefully, this informational political forum was beneficial for you, and you learned more information about the candidates and what they believe in and what they stand for. But we do encourage you to exercise your right to vote. So, where can you vote and when can you vote? As you know, early voting started today, and it runs all the way through November 4th, and here's the dates. Monday, today, October 24th through Friday, October the 28th, Saturday, October the 29th, and Sunday the 30th, and then Monday the 31st through November the 4th. And then finally, Election Day is Tuesday, November the 8th. There are 5 locations that you can go and vote early. Of course, we have the Records Building, the McLennan County Elections Office Records Building. You should know where that is. That's where you go get your car tags, right? And you pay your property taxes there. If you're looking at the building, it's on the right side in the basement. But the address is 214 North 4th Street. You can also go to the Waco Multi-Purpose Center at 1020 Elm Avenue, or the First Assembly of God on Cobbs and Bosque, Hewitt City Hall, or Robinson Community Center. So those are the locations that you can go and early vote. And then I encourage you to visit the McLennan County Elections Office website for other locations that will be open on Election Day. But we really want you to get there before November the 8th, because anything can happen, right, on November 8th. And so life happens, so take advantage of your right to vote and go vote early. So this concludes our program. At this time, again, we would like to invite you to the church hall. Thank you again to Pastor Andrade and Family of Faith Worship Center for providing the snacks and refreshments. And so at this time, we're dismissed. Have a good evening, and we'll see you in the church hall. Thank you.